This morning, Chairman Williams and Chairman Pitts filed important legislation calling for more transparency in government. Senate Bill 14 and House Bill 14 will provide taxpayers with more financial information, empowering them to make informed decisions about taxes and public debt. Also this morning, Chairman Duncan and Chairman Caligari filed significant legislation aimed at shining a light on public pensions. SB 13 and HB 13 will require public pensions to report information essential for taxpayers to determine the financial stability of the plan, and it calls for mandatory education for public pension system administrators. Recently, I spent several months holding about 40 town hall meetings across the state with Texans, and each time I asked the attendees if they could tell me how much debt their local governments are carrying. Not a single person in a single town had that information. People need to know what their government is doing and how it spends their money. We need to implement common sense changes that put vital information about government spending and debt in front of the public. Welcome, Chairman Pitts. For example, most people don't have the first idea of how new proposed debt fits into the total debt being carried by their local governments. Voters must know how much debt they are carrying and how much debt service they are currently paying before they choose to vote in more debt. This transparency legislation would require that additional information be included on the ballot when new debt is presented to voters for approval, such as total debt outstanding, debt service, and existing per capita debt obligation. Furthermore, we must put limitations on governments issuing debt without voter approval through certificates of obligation. Too often, governments are using this process to make an end run around taxpayers' wishes. This transparency legislation would prohibit the use of certificates of obligation to pay for something voters already voted down. There has been a proliferation of special purpose taxing districts in the past decade, and with so many taxes and so many taxing entities, it is difficult for the average taxpayer to determine who is taxing them and for how much. Many special purpose districts across the state are a necessary function and do a great job meeting the needs of the taxpayers they serve. In fact, I lived in a municipal utility district and was thrilled with it. This legislation is not about judging particular types of taxing entities. It is about keeping folks informed and holding government accountable. This transparency legislation would require all taxing entities to post financial information online, including revenues and expenditures, and detailed information on long-term debt obligations. Finally, if a public pension fund is underfunded, it is another form of debt that taxpayers are responsible for. When taxpayers are paying the freight, they need to know how much they owe. Yet we discovered through numerous open records requests that it is incredibly hard to get financial information regarding public pensions, and this must change. The pension legislation would require increased reporting for all public pension systems and calls for this information to be posted online so it is readily available and easy for taxpayers to find. I am committed to making Texas government transparent and our books open, accessible, and understandable, and look forward to seeing this legislation enacted. I am honored to have my great good friend David Dewhurst here today supporting this important new step in government openness and transparency. Governor Dewhurst.
Thank you very much, Comptroller. Thank you so much. And Chairman, thank you all very much for being here. Just coincidentally, just this morning in the Wall Street Journal, there was an article about Congress needs to take a look at the rising amount of public debt and pension debt. And it went on to talk about pension obligation bonds, which are normally not approved by the voters, and nationwide there's some $64 billion. As the only traditional businessman elected statewide, when you want to look at the health of a business, you've got to look at all the data. The same thing is true for government. We've got to look at all the data in order to understand the fiscal condition of any form of government. Now, on the state level, I'm pleased we're looking at the state of Texas being 45th out of 50 states in per capita state debt. But we want to have transparency. That's why I think these two bills that the gentlemen are carrying make so much sense. On the Senate Bill 13 by Senator Duncan, making any information that comes out of the pension boards, whether it's employee retirement system, our teachers' retirement system. As that information comes out, put it on the web, and so everyone knows exactly the condition of that pension. On Senate Bill 14, which I believe Chairman Caligari and Senator Williams are carrying, it's providing for more transparency in our education debt, our local debt, so that the voters know what they're voting on and they understand the full picture.